Hey, everybody. Happy Tuesday. How are you? Oh, we're a little cockeyed tonight, aren't we? It's been a busy day, shall we say. I was out at Hickory Knolls with kindergartners this morning, and it's a nice way to relax and spend the evening now with some grown-ups. Put a bow on this fine May Tuesday. Lots of things are happening outside, folks. And I'm sorry if I'm a little distracted. I had some brownies I was baking in the oven as a thank you to some of our park staff, and I was licking the bowl. I just wanted to make sure I didn't have any on my face. Anyway, let's focus on tonight in our good-natured news for this particular week. Those of you who tune in regularly know that there's a certain tree that is haunting/taunting me. Yes, it's the white walnut. You guys, you will not believe this. The other day, I was getting ready to walk to work and got my coat on, got my backpack, got my lunch, headed out. I went out through the garage door goes up, and what is sitting on the driveway right in front of the garage door? Another white walnut, also known as a butternut. Now this one, it's not rattly. It actually feels pretty heavy. I think that the meat inside might still be intact. These things are so hard. I would probably have to take a hammer or put it in the vise in order to open it, but the mystery continues. I don't know where these are coming from. With the appearance of this nut, not this nut, that would seem to indicate I'm getting more little pins on the map that I'm making in this general area of southwestern St. Charles. I should plant it. Yes, thank you, Sarah. That would be one way. It wouldn't solve this mystery, but it would help me find future butternuts in the maybe 20 years from now, when it reaches that age where it is old enough to have its own offspring. That's a great idea. Maybe I will. So I'm torn between eating it and planting it. We'll have to see. Maybe I'll open the garage door tomorrow and there'll be even more. So keep you posted on that because it is a continually evolving mystery. Now for tonight, we've got actually another evolving mystery. Laura will be joining us. Laura, she signs in every week, but tonight, I believe she is filling the role of grandma for the first part. She said that her little granddaughter goes to bed at 8, but at grandma's house sometimes it's 8:15 or 8:20. But anyway, Laura has a little mystery over at her house that we're going to discuss a little bit later on. Until she signs on, let's go ahead and get started with the look at this week's nature news. Let's see, let's do a screen share here, and right, that's not the screen I want to share. I want to share this one. There we go. Let's go ahead and take a look here. I'm going to minimize that there. All right, so as I mentioned, just about every week when I go to work, I walk. I'm either walking to the office on Walnut Street, or I'm walking over to the building formerly known as Haynes, which is the Park District still operates the gym there. And then that's where I park the vehicle that I drive when I go out and do the outreach programming. So most of the time I'm looking down, not because I'm downcast, but because there's just so many things to see down on the ground. And I noticed this, if we zoom in a little bit here on this photo, you might be able to see what I was looking at as it comes into focus here. Little wood chips all around the base of a tree. And when you see wood chips around the base of a tree, and here you can see the size of now I didn't put the 2 5/8 inch lip balm down here so you can see these, but these were each about a centimeter or ½ inch or so in length. This is also, this person, whoever lives in this house, they have a habit of putting ashes at the base of this tree. I don't know if it's something they do to all the trees on their property. This one is very close to the sidewalk, so it was easy for me to see. I don't know if they do it on all their trees or if that just happens to be the one closest to where their fireplace is. Anyway, those black particles there, that is charcoal from whatever ashes they dumped there. But the little wood chips on the ground caused me to look up, and we have a new woodpecker hole in the neighborhood. This is a pretty good sized hole. I'm gonna guess that it is, it was made by a red-bellied woodpecker. This is the sort of tree that they really like. So this part is dead. This something happened to this part of the tree. It's a pretty good chunk that was taken off. It was cut off at a weird place, though. Looks like something I would do to one of my trees. In fact, I am having a tree taken down this weekend, a box elder tree that has been sort of the bane of the backyard for the last 30 years. It's the last of 3 that's coming down this weekend. And I did ask the arborist to leave a pretty good size, I don't even think you'd call it a stump. I asked for about 12 feet or so of the tree to remain, and so that maybe it could form some woodpecker habitat. So who knows, maybe I'll get to be lucky someday to have a woodpecker like this. So clearly this part of the tree is dead. There's other parts that are still alive, but I'll keep an eye on this. Maybe I'll be lucky enough to see the resident of this recently formed tree cavity sticking its head out. I have to remember to look up though as I'm walking by. So I'm gonna see, sometimes these videos play and sometimes they don't. Okay, so here we have, this is a pair of Downy woodpeckers, since we're staying in the woodpecker theme here. I don't know what that little knocking sound was that surprised me when I watched this video. We'll run it again here. It wasn't drumming. So I don't know what that sound was, but Downy woodpeckers, as part of their courtship, this was a little bit of wing flickering that they were doing, but they also have another part of their courtship where they float around between the branches of a tree in a very un-woodpecker-like wing motion. If you've ever watched woodpeckers flying through the air, they have a kind of an undulating flight pattern, flap, flap, and then they pull their wings in and their bodies dip a little bit, and then they flap, flap, flap some more, and they up, down, up, down, up, down, undulate their bodies through the air as they fly. When Downies are courting, it's a flutter, and this to me looks like the so they don't really leave the branches, but they are clearly communicating. And so let me stop this here so we can take let me back it up just a little bit. There's a couple other things I wanted to point out to you as we watch them in their display. Oh, it's going to be hard to get it to stop at just the right time. And he's gone. All right, let's bring it back again. Okay, here. These woodpeckers, when they're on the side of a tree, whether they're foraging and tapping around looking for food, or if they're drumming, as a means of communicating, or even when they are excavating their holes, they need to brace themselves. And so, and it's not just Downies, I think it's all the woodpeckers we have in this area. They all have these really stiff, there's 2 of them here, very stiff tail feathers that they use as a brace. They can use it to prop their bodies, help prop their bodies as they're holding on with their little claws. That just gives an extra measure of stabilization. It's they're really stiff feathers. A couple of times I found woodpeckers that have been hit by cars, and I've always been taken by how strong those feathers are. And this gives us a good view of those 2 tail feathers. They have a lot more than 2 tail feathers, but those are the 2 primary braces on the back of their body. So anyway, that was a look at what the Downies are up to in terms of their courtship. This picture kind of made me chuckle. A few weeks ago, we talked about the city's measures to keep the geese out of the flower boxes. This is the Illinois Bridge in downtown St. Charles. And I actually talked to Public Works about this the other day. There was quite a bit of design and engineering that went into these ramps. Last year, they tried one method, didn't really work so well. So this year, the boxes are completely covered. They're slanted sheets of plywood, very effective in keeping the geese from nesting. Now, the city guys said, if it had been up to them, they would have been fine with letting the geese stay in those flower boxes. They thought it was kind of cool. It's the Fox River. Geese live on the river. The flower boxes give the geese a nice predator, well, not predator free, but a less likely predator. Predators are going to be less prone to going up into those flower boxes than they would be when the geese are down on the ground where they would typically nest. But there was such a public outcry. People were afraid to walk down the bridge, across the bridge, when those geese were there. So it was due to popular resident requests, not so much a decision by the city staff to block off those flower boxes. So clearly there's a nest somewhere. This was taken, so this view, this is on the south side or the downstream side of the Illinois Bridge. I'm thinking this is Papa Goose and Mama. She might be as close as here. She might be somewhere down. There's a lot of riprap and things, rocks, along the shore. There's also more vegetation a little farther downstream. So he's kind of hanging out while she is doing her job of incubating their future family. It's a little update there. And since we're talking about the river, let's talk about the river bugs. So yes, there's been now, so the first few emergences we've seen this year have been types of little flies. A lot of them have been midges. Midges look a lot like mosquitoes, but they don't bite. They don't need a blood meal in order to lay their eggs the way mosquitoes do. Well, now we're starting to see some of our caddisflies, and these were a couple. So caddisflies, they're kind of the aquatic equivalent of moths. The larvae that lives in the water for probably about a year's time before the adults emerge. The larvae is in the water. A lot of them are green. They look a lot like caterpillars, but they're adapted to living in the water as opposed to on land. The big difference between caddisflies and moths, see if we can zoom in here. It's a little hard to see, but moths are part of the order Lepidoptera, which means scaly wings. The caddisflies are part of the order Trichoptera, which means hairy wings. So instead of little scales, their wings are covered with little hairs. Pretty short lifespan once they emerge. Now, again, they're in the water for a year or so. Once they become adults, it's kind of, they mate, they lay some eggs, and that's it. So during their time that they were out and about, this particular brood, we had some pretty cold weather, we had some windy weather, we had some rainy weather. So there was a lot of caddisflies or river bugs that were not doing the flying thing so much as the sitting still thing. So when they're flying, these insects are prey for a lot of our winged insectivorous birds, or swallows, the phoebes that have come back. I don't know. I know chimney swifts are headed this way. I don't know if we've seen our first chimney swift in this area or not, but this is the sort of insect that really sustains these guys. There's a lot of fat on the body of these caddisflies, and they're so plentiful that they're also pretty easy prey. They have a weak flight. So a lot of birds are gobbling them up, but when it's raining and when it's windy, the birds have difficulty flying and the insects have difficulty flying. Well, we got to see up close yesterday how that all works out. So this is the roof in front of Good Natured World Headquarters. This is the roof on top of the porch, the front porch at the office. And I would say there was 100 or more. It was a mixed flock of tree swallows and barn swallows that came in and were just feasting. So they were ground. Normally they would be feeding in the air, but they were having difficulty flying. But here we can see there's a swallow and a river bug right next to each other. So they were actually gleaning not only from the roof there, but also the big burr oak tree in front of the office. So that was kind of cool to see how both of these flying creatures were having difficulty with their flying. So they just did their thing while they were grounded. I didn't realize. I was sort of thinking that swallows, especially barn swallows, I didn't realize that they would feed while they're sitting still, but yesterday was a great example of how they could do that. Now this beetle, it caught my eye. So this was on Saturday. This was over at Potawatomi, and it's a it was raining. I couldn't quite reach the pocket that had my lip balm in it, but this insect was probably about an inch long. So bigger, but not as big as some of the beetles we see in this area. It was, but it had this metallic bluish green character to its body. It was also, it was moving around. I don't know if it was in fear of drowning or if it was just trying to find a place to get out of the rain. But I tried to get a good clear photo so we could look at the antennae, and it just, I took a whole bunch of pictures, and this was the best I could get. But whenever you see an insect with this sort of matte black wings, and then a body that sticks out behind, here's the abdomen coming out behind. A lot of times this indicates, a lot of our beetles, the leathery wings will cover the entire abdomen, but there's some groups where the wings fall a little short. One of those groups is the blister beetles, and blister beetles, like they sound, they do produce a chemical that can be an irritant to our skin. They ooze it out of some of their joints. So this isn't really an insect that is good to pick up and look at, but it is nonetheless extremely interesting to observe. A lot of well, all of the blister beetles have a a really interesting life cycle where their larvae are parasitoids. And now the parasites, they make their living on the bodies of other creatures. Parasitoids, they also survive by living off another living organism, but their host ends up dying as a result of it. So in the case of these, this beetle, I think I've narrowed it down to this genus Lytta, Lytta, and then a.k.a, which is according to Bug Guide, so this is a blister beetle that occurs in our area. And it listed in as a parasitoid of cellophane beetles, cellophane bees, which are one of our native bees that is flying around right now. I think we talked about the Colletes bees a couple of weeks ago. Colletes inequalis is extremely common, and that's the one pretty sure we see at Delnor Woods, because there's a bright red parasitoid beetle that uses them to complete their life cycle. The beetle, this particular beetle, the supposed host is a cellophane bee that I didn't know occurred in this area. So the Bug Guide reference also wasn't complete. They said there could be other hosts. Sometimes the parasitoid and the host are very specific. One species parasitizes another species. Sometimes they can parasitize a family of insects. So I need to dig a little bit deeper on this, but it was kind of a cool find. And I want to go back on a warm and sunny day to see what other kind of bee activity is at. This was actually right by mini golf at Potawatomi Park. So I want to see if there's signs of cellophane beetles. I'll actually be there on Thursday, so I might poke around a little bit more. If I can find another group of cellophane beetles. Now those are just to recap a little bit, those cellophane bees are solitary bees that make their nests in the ground. It looks like there's a colony of them. They aggregate. What they're doing is taking advantage of favorable soil conditions. So it's not so much that they're all working together, but it's like they've all found this great spot where they can tunnel down and lay their eggs. So I want to poke around there a little bit more. This particular cellophane bee that was listed on Bug Guide, Colletes thoracicus, it looks pretty neat. It's got a rufous colored back on the thorax, thoracicus. So if I can find it, I will tell you. Not next week. That's one thing I wanted to mention to you too. I'll try to remember at the end too. Next week is a bye week for Good Nature. We will not be meeting next Tuesday on May the 9th. So next time we get together will be the 16th. And if I found something by then on these cellophane bees, I will let you know. All right, now as we go on to our next news item here. One of my favorite times of year is when the hickory buds are popping open. And these things, they look like flowers. And it's nice when you can find them. This is up at Tekakwitha Woods, the forest preserve north of St. Charles, where the nature center for the county used to be located. It's great to be seeing some hickory regeneration going on there. There's been so much clearing. Some of you might recall, I talk about this every once in a while. This was where I did my internship to get my start in this field back in the late 90s, 1999 into the year 2000. And there's this particular area that's a little blurry in the background here. There was a lot of honeysuckle throughout this whole part of the woods, and through the efforts of the stewards there, Valerie and Carrie, and their dedicated volunteers, a lot of this has been cleared out. And it's great to see these hickories, and then there's also oaks that are regenerating as well. Now these leaf buds on the hickories, it can be hard to see on a mature hickory. They're big trees. The lower branches, there doesn't tend to be lower branches on a mature hickory. They're up and they're up above our heads by several feet. It's hard to see these leaf buds as they're opening. Sometimes people will ask, "What's that cool flower that I saw out in the woods?" And they describe it. They think it might be some exotic, like a magnolia, or maybe even some kind of a woody orchid. But it is the opening buds of the shagbark hickory tree. Very cool. And then we've got our Dutchman's breeches. We've got some that are blooming and some that have gone to seed, like several of our woodland wildflowers, our spring ephemerals, as we call them. The Dutchman's breeches are dependent on ants to help disperse their seeds. So these little pods here, we zoom in, the seeds inside there have a little fatty attachment to it, the elizome, that when those seeds fall down, the ants pick them up, carry them back to their anthills. They feed on that fatty, I think there's a little sugar in there too. To me, it always sounds kind of like frosting. And then when they discard the seed, then the seed can begin to grow. So because we've had these patterns where it's been warm, it's been cold, it's been warm, it's been cold, we've got wildflowers that are in a lot of stages of development. Some have already set their seeds and some are still blooming, like these guys here. There is just a sea of trout lilies at Tekakwitha. There's a little spring beauty that crept into this shot too, but trout lilies, like our trilliums, our May apples, this is a plant that needs to be several years old before it will actually set a flower. It'll send up one leaf year after year after year until it gets enough energy stored up in the roots below that it can send up 2 leaves with a stalk with a flower on the end. And there's every year there are more trout lilies that hit maturity and start to bloom. So this has gone from just a sea of green leaves to a sea of green leaves with a lot of white flowers poking out through them. And then we've got our large trillium. We talked a little bit about these last week, the Trillium grandiflorum. This is in an area where the deer come through here. And I actually was reading a study. This was not in Illinois, and I don't know who's monitoring the chemical composition of our rains here, but out in Pennsylvania, I know a lot of the East Coast, they've been concerned with acid rain for a long time. As they've watched this species of wildflower sometimes have good years, sometimes have very low years. When the trillium numbers are low, the common thinking out there was, well, it's the deer that are browsing on them. But there was a soil scientist out there who was looking at the acid content of the soil and how that was affecting the growth and the spreading of the giant Trillium grandiflora, the big white trillium. And he thought that the acid growing conditions were also having an effect on its ability to spread. Now, around here, I still think it's the deer, because sometimes the deer go through and they browse a lot, and then other years they don't. Now, this is a plant, though, that does also spread, not just, these aren't necessarily all individual plants. There's rhizomes underneath the soil. So some of these flowers could all be related. They could all be growing from the same plant. But there is a beautiful spread of them in one of the ravines at that wonderful preserve. Now it looks like we got a couple other comments here. Let's see, we're going to plant the butternut. Foresters do cut sky-facing surfaces on an angle to help the rain to run off. Okay, so yeah, that's kind of what I pictured, Anne, when the guys come on Saturday to cut this box elder down. I was thinking of it more so that the neighbors behind me wouldn't have to look at the ugly surface if it was at an angle. It might be more aesthetically pleasing, but we'll see what we get. I'm just hoping that it's becomes suitable for woodpeckers. Then they were everywhere on Friday by the river. Yeah, Friday was one of those days where it could be hard to walk without getting bugs in your teeth, bugs in your nose, and then I hoping that the swallows were going to show up to help take care of some of those extra birds, extra bugs. Diana, are the back legs of the caddisflies hidden behind their back end? I'm not sure about that, Diana. Let's take a quick run back. I thought you could see all. There we are. Here we go. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Look at that. Here we can see them coming off the back here. Yeah, it might just be the way they're posing. We're holding their legs. So here we've got back legs here, and then one pair here. This was actually on the windshield of the car. I had this silly hope that it maybe would stop raining before I got out of my car on Saturday. It didn't.
Yeah, I wrote that comment before you showed that last picture, because they're quite long, and they must keep them like tucked in. That's why the first couple pictures I didn't see them.
Yeah, I kind of think maybe they're back, maybe the length of the wings. Might be able to see one here on this guy. It might just be the way the wing, the length of the leg and the length of the wing are similar. And look at these antennae. I don't know that there's any sexual dimorphism with this insect. I think that the males and the females all look similar, although boy, this one certainly has big eyes. Again, it might just be the angle of the camera, but there was a bunch, and it's not going to be the only one. We'll see several more of these as we go through the rest of spring and into summer.
What I noticed about the caddisflies is that they're exactly the same shape as the ones that we were talking about underneath the stones in the creek.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
They look like your earrings, except they have all the body parts.
Yeah, there's so many different kinds of caddisflies, and I remember when I was first getting involved with water quality monitoring, there's the ephemeroptera, which are the mayflies, the plecoptera, which are the stoneflies, and the trichoptera, which are the caddisflies. Those are kind of the big three of water quality monitoring, and depending on what the protocol is, sometimes you'll see reference to the EPT index, and that's the quantities of those three orders in comparison to other things you might find, like say dragonflies or damselflies, those types of insects. And the caddisflies, there's even within that order, there's a huge range of their tolerance to water pollution. Some there's some that don't make a case at all. I mentioned the larvae have this soft green body, and a lot of them do glue together either little bits of stone and sand or plant material to protect that soft body. But some don't. Some just they're web spinners, and they will create silk. They'll capture detritus in the water, which they'll then feed on. But they're just kind of hanging out in a little silken web, pretty vulnerable to other creatures that might come along and try to eat them. But yeah, there's quite a range in the tolerance of these insects to their the pollution, the living conditions around them in the water. Well, let's see. Let's go through our flowers again. Oh, this is another. So there's the morels are up. And I was really hoping I could show you guys all the morels that I've been able to find this fine spring. I haven't found any up here yet. I did find a few. I was downstate a couple of weeks ago, and I did find a few down there. Up here, you know, you either have to know somebody who's got private land that has morels on it, or you need to get yourself to a state park. The two closest ones around here would be Silver Spring State Park in Yorkville and James Pate Phillips State Park up in, I think that's Bartlett off of Stearns Road. Well, this is kind of the consolation prize for mushroom hunters. Now, this particular mushroom, would be too, getting to be to the point where it's too large to eat. It doesn't turn toxic. There's no fear of this, you know, making you sick. But it is a mushroom that gets really tough as it gets bigger. This is called pheasantback or dryad saddle. I like the name pheasantback because if you can picture the feathers on the back of a pheasant, when these mushrooms are young and fresh like this, it really does resemble those strongly patterned feathers on the back. If you happen to be in a place where it's okay to pick these mushrooms, you want to look at the underside of this species. If you can see pores, if it's not smooth underneath, if you can see little tiny holes, then it's too tough to consume. You can still use it to make stock with. You can boil it and it will flavor a stock, say if you're going to make a soup or a stew or something. But if you actually want to eat it, if you want to saute it, cut it up into chunks and eat it, you can't see. There can't be any pores that are visible. So these do get quite large, and they hang on. You can see them. Usually you can see them all year round. In the wintertime, they're starting to look kind of ratty, but I most often see these on down, say, cottonwoods and box elders. Morels, I was first taught that you look where there's dead elm trees, but boy, the best luck I've had finding morels has been around either dead or dying fruit trees. A few years ago, I was so surprised. I was cutting the lawn at my mom's house, and I was going around the little crabapple tree that I'd gotten for Arbor Day in like 1970 something. And about half of that crabapple had died, and there were morels at the base of it. So, and I've had good luck by old pear trees that have a lot of dead branches on them. I imagine they have a lot of dead roots underneath the ground too. So you can add fruit trees, well, apple and the palms, apple and pear trees to places to check if you are a morel hunter and have a place to go hunting looking for them. Now, one other thing I was going to show you, this is also at Tekakwitha. This squared stem caught my eye. We've got a few trees in this area that have a kind of a squarey stem. A lot of times you'll see little wings coming off of that, and that's not so good. That means you're looking at a euonymus, like a burning bush, which is an invader in a lot of our woods. But when you see a squared stem like that, and it's accompanied by opposite branching and leaflets that look like this, then you're looking at a blue ash. And we've got some stands of blue ash. I know there's some at Glenwood Park Forest Preserve down in Batavia, and Johnson's Mound in Elburn. And apparently we've got a few at Tekakwitha as well. Just kind of a fun gee whiz sort of a thing. Square stems, opposite branches, blue ash. Of course, now when you're out, whether you're looking for wildflowers or mushrooms or blue ash, you want to be careful that you're not getting yourself in tangled with this character here. Yeah, this is poison ivy. This is the early stages of poison ivy. The chlorophyll has yet to form in the leaves, and so it's still got this. I think it's a really pretty kind of a bronzish, reddish color. This tree actually happened to be, this is very near where that pheasantback mushroom was growing. So you sometimes get so distracted by whatever's on your list of things to go see that you lose sight of things that you might regret running into. Now, Meredith, you had shared an article. The New York Times did a little look at the other side of poison ivy. What does it bring to the table? Why do we, why don't we just eradicate this plant the way we do a lot of our invasives? Well, for one thing, it is native, and it is a plant that has a very nutritious, a high fat content berry, which is very important to our migrating birds. We don't see it now. We see it during the fall migration, but this plant will get a cluster of a kind of greenish, yellowish green flowers. They're not terribly showy, but then they turn into little white berries that are valued by birds, and that's who spreads the seeds around. Then they consume those berries with the seeds in them, and then you get more poison ivy. The way our climate is changing, the more carbon dioxide we have in our atmosphere, they see the more potent the urushiol, which is the oil in this plant, the stronger that compound is becoming, and so thus the itchier it can make us. It is kind of a uniquely human reaction. Other animals do not react to poison ivy. I know my brother years ago, he got poison ivy from his dog who had run through leaves like this, and the oil got on the dog's fur, and then when he pet the dog, he got the rash. So it's the transfer of oil. What I've seen, and there was a really convincing, and it's probably a YouTube video, but I've followed this advice, and I haven't had a breakout since. Now, maybe I've just been extra careful too. I've thought I've touched poison ivy when I really haven't. But to get that oil off, people say to use Dawn dish detergent because that breaks up the oil, and that might be true, but it also is good to use a lot of mechanical removal too, a lot of paper towels, or you want to wipe the oil off, use a lot of friction as you're washing, get rid of it, not just by breaking it up chemically, but also by wiping it physically. The demonstration was the guy put, I think it was axle grease on his hands, and he showed, it was a dark grease, and how he washed his hands, and there was a lot still remaining, but then he used a cloth afterwards and wiped and wiped and wiped until there was no trace of the grease left. So I thought that was a pretty good representation of how to deal with the plant. Just because you touch it doesn't mean you're automatically going to break out. If you can take action relatively quickly, you have a good chance of getting rid of the rash. The article also mentioned the folk remedies like jewelweed, and there are actually products that are sold that have extracts from jewelweed in them. Those were proven to be less effective than the jewelweed itself. And again, I think rubbing, it's the rubbing action as much as it is the fluids within the jewelweed leaves that help to get the oils off the body. One other thing the article mentioned was the stabilizing nature of poison ivy's roots and how they're in the ground and they can help stabilize a disturbed area, which is where this plant thrives. It really does well in areas of disturbance. So yeah, it's got some nice qualities. A lot of the people though, they just can't get beyond the fact that it can really make you itch. Anyway, it's up, it's out. This is what it looks like right now. Keep your eyes open. This is just a quick little thing. This happened just a few hours ago. I got a call from a local resident. She had a note from her mail carrier saying, look, I'm not going to bring mail to your house anymore because you have a bird's nest above your mailbox. So this is actually where the nest was. So this was just a couple of blocks from my house. I had to go actually mail some letters. So I thought, you know, I'll swing by there on my way home and see what we can do. So a robin had built a nest here in the supporting structure. This is a little roof above the front porch. And this is an ideal place for robins to nest. More and more we see robins nesting on structures in this sort of a location. It's out of largely out of the wind. It's protected from precipitation. The only problem is that this location was just above the mailbox. So the parent robin was, you know, dropping things on the mailbox, and the mail carrier was like, look, I don't want to touch this. I don't want to catch a disease. I'm not going to bring you your mail unless you get rid of the nest. Well, you guys probably all know you can't move a nest if there's eggs in it. Well, this nest did not have any eggs. So now this was that little V right here. That's where the nest had been sitting. You can see the mud where the nest was. This is south over here. So I think the bird may have chosen that because it was the most sheltered part of this little porch area. Anyway, what we did was we just moved it over here to the north side of the porch because there's no eggs in it. There's no hatchlings in it. It's not technically an active nest yet, so we just moved it over. I don't know if the robin is going to go for this or not. The resident had thought maybe we should move it over to a tree, but I kind of think I don't know if the robin's going to follow this at all, because the bird at this point has no investment other than a few hours of time in building the nest. So there's no genetic investment in it. There's no babies. There's no eggs. So I asked the resident to keep me informed as to whether the bird follows and, you know, sticks with this location, or if it just abandons it completely and builds a nest somewhere else. 2 years ago, I had 1, 2, 3, I think 4 robins nests, and I think it was all the same bird building on one of the beams underneath my back deck. It's about between 4 and 5 feet off the ground. And it looks, I'm sure to the robin, it looked like a great place to nest. But I think every time it built a nest, it was dry out, and then it would rain, and rain would drip through the planks of the deck. So they'd think, oh, that's not such a great place. So then they would build another one. So there were 4 nests and zero reproduction occurred. So they can build nests and then not use them. Remains to be seen what happens with this one. So like you said, we move the nest from one side of the porch to the other. And then I asked the resident to make that, since she wants to continue to get her mail, I said, block off that area. So this is what she did. She put some cardboard up so that the robin will be unable to nest in that particular area. So we'll see what happens. But it is something, remember, if you're faced with a similar situation, once there's eggs in the nest, all bets are off. I don't know, like, you know, in a battle of federal agencies, who would win, U.S. Fish and Wildlife and the Migratory Bird Act, or the U.S. Postal Service in their, you know, delivering mail in, you know, the dark of night, and the, you know, all the other things that is it the rain, sleet, snow, all the things that they're supposed to deliver the mail through. Apparently they don't deliver if there's birds pooping near the mailbox. So anyway, we'll see if there's more developments on this. I will let you know. Now, all right, Laura, have you got, are you on with us yet, Laura?
Yeah, I just got on about 5 minutes ago.
Ah.
Just got my granddaughter to bed.
Bedtime at Grandma's house. Yeah, I said that you might be joining us late because your little dumpling might not go to bed right at 8 p.m.
And she didn't.
So, any more news from the situation you have?
I haven't checked it again today, but yeah, we've got piles of scat here.
So this,
and yeah, go ahead.
well, I was just saying, this was the picture you sent me, and then there's been an addition to this since then. I'm going to see if I can zoom in on this.
Yes, so this is my window well, and my husband was out starting to dig up for the garden, and he called me out and he said, you got to look at this. And to the right, kind of right across from the old pot that fell down in there, was a tremendous amount of raccoon scat with lots of seeds in it. And then right by the stake at the end there was some more raccoon scat. So we were like, what is going on? And I texted Pam, and Pam said, oh, you know, you could have the beginning of a raccoon latrine. And I just laughed. And then yesterday I went and checked, and on the right hand large bit of scat, there was more. And I thought, maybe Pam is not joking. So evidently, and Pam, I think you know more about this, but yeah, I've got a favorite spot for at least one raccoon to be depositing the scat.
So yeah, Laura, and I when we talked today, I said, you know, I've been trying to dig it into this a little bit deeper to find out what the behavior behind this is, what's driving this. And I think I mentioned to you that PBS special, that the scat scientists and the science of scat. And I remember they actually did this whole thing with wombat latrines. Wombats scat comes out in cubes. And I remember the scene, I tried to look it up. I'm not a PBS supporter, so I don't have access to past. This was on, I think it was either Nature or Nova. But there was actually a scene where two scientists made clay cube-shaped scat replicas and stacked them up and talked about how in the wombat world, how these latrines then became scent markers and signposts, and there was all kinds of communication where they could tell if there were intruders and if there, who was male and who was female and who was young and who was old. There was all kinds of information being shared by those scats. So I'm going to stop our little friend here.
By the way, I
Um,
thought you were joking about the cube scat too.
Yeah,
That
It's-
was a joke.
it's a real thing. In fact, there is one segment that you can view online. It's about 5 minutes long, but they studied what would that be, the physiology behind it, how the wombat colon works, and they actually used a rubber band. There's stiff and then there's stretchy parts of the colon, and when you pinch two ends of a rubber band and then push it back and forth, it makes a square shape.
Ah,
Yeah. Yeah, so they really got into the whole wombat cube thing. So the latrine thing. So I went to try and figure this out. I got a couple of my favorite references out. This one in particular, Tracking in the Art of Seeing. This is a book that I got early on in my my outdoor education career. I don't think it's in print anymore, but there are more recent editions that and again are used book sources, Abe Books and Half Price Books. There's thrift books. There's several brick and mortar and also online retailers where you can probably find this book. This is Paul Resendez. He's a wildlife photographer and he's also a tracking guide. So he does cool pictures, and he also then accompanies them with lots of text of explanation. So I looked up to see what Paul had to say about Raccoons-n-Latrines. And he, like I was telling you, Laura, when you look this up online, most of the references are stressing the danger of raccoon scat because of the roundworm eggs that are contained in them. And that's even this. So this guy that makes his living like crawling around and looking at tracks and poo. The first thing he says for raccoon scat is there's a definite danger in handling raccoon scat. In some areas, these animals carry a parasitic roundworm that lives in the intestinal tract. Blah, 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 blah. Precautions should also be taken with pets and with children to prevent hand-to-mouth or mouth-to-mouth transmission. So he says, although raccoons will defecate randomly, more often they will develop latrines. They travel along, raccoons travel along specific corridors and pathways. They often choose a large tree somewhere along the corridor as a latrine and defecate beside it. Other areas chosen for latrines may be on top of a stone wall, on a large horizontal limb, or in the fork of a tree close to the ground. Also look on fallen logs or under rock outcroppings. So window wells could be added to this too. Latrines indicate high traffic areas, and usually the denning or resting areas are nearby. The larger the latrine, the more intensive the activity in that area. And then he goes on to describe the scat, and then he ends again with another caution. But he does say, being fully aware of those concerns, I exercise great caution. When I do examine the scat, I wear gloves and I use a stick when crumbling it. Black or brown, earthy looking droppings have a very pungent, penetrating smell. That this guy really gets into his work. Scat composed of grain smells like cereal. Scat composed of fruit smells like fruit. You heard it from the master.
there we go.
So Stokes guide had a similar take on it, just saying that it indicates that there's that raccoons they're creatures of habit. They tend to follow the same pathways. So
I guess I'm really lucky. So
guys,
lucky.
what Laura and I talked about today was getting a trail camp and setting it up. So I'm going to scrounge around and get some batteries, and maybe in the next day or two, Laura, we could get
that would be fun. I mean, let's find the culprits in the act. Yeah, it'll have to be fairly soon, because I think my husband is going to say, okay, tops, get the covers on the
Absolutely. Well, yeah, and that is the definite, especially if you've got the little Bambino, not that she would,
Yeah.
fall into the window well, but heaven forbid she did. Yeah, having a cover on it will, but it might stop that latrine. Actually, it might not. They might just go, on top of the cover.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm so lucky.
We'll have to see. I think that'll be part of our weeks, coming weeks plans.
All right, that sounds good. That'll be fun. Trail cam, we'll see what we get. Thanks, Pam.
Right. And you had another comment. You were up in Milwaukee on Sunday in the children's room. They had a table set up with matching activities of near and dear to my heart. Match the animal to its scat. Oh, that's awesome. Well,
It was a great, it was a great activity. I mean, there were kids just hovering around the table because they were laughing and smiling. And I'm thinking, what a great activity to share nature with kids.
Sure. Well, and it's grown-ups tend to, well, I was going to say poo-poo it, but
Perfect.
They go, oh, that's so
words.
gross. Who wants it? But it is so helpful to know what's around you. And
absolutely.
In this case, if it's raccoon, you also want to avoid it. You want to handle it carefully. A coyote or a fox would be a completely different message of, hey, our rabbits and our vole populations are going to get some attention. There was, I forget if it was the Stokes guide, or I did also look, I've got like 6 different tracking books. One of them talked about the difference between like rabbits where they might be bedded down, or deer might be in an area where they happen to make a lot of deposits just because that's where they're hanging out. That's different from a latrine. But what I'm really hoping to find is what the behavior and the social aspects of latrine formation might be. But it's always good to pay attention to those signs. Might be tracks, might be chews, might be poop. What is the name of the book? So the 2 in so this one's my absolute favorite, Tracking and the Art of Seeing. Let me hold it so you can see it there. Tracking and the Art of Seeing, How to Read Animal Tracks and Sign by Paul Resendez. This one's pretty good because it does have a lot of behavior notes in it. This is the Stokes guide. Stokes guide, Donald and Lillian Stokes have a huge array of field guides and just nature references. And this one is their animal tracking and behavior. 2 good references. There's others that are more solidly into just interpreting the tracks, like Tom Brown and James Halfpenny. There's plenty of references out there, but the minute I saw Tracking in the Art of Seeing, I knew I had to have it just because of the photos and then his text. He's so very good at describing those things that he sees. And there it is. You can get it on Amazon. You can probably get it on eBay. You could probably get it, because this is, I think this was, I remember writing, it was in the early days of email. I somehow found his email, Paul Resendez's email address, because I had seen out in the Smoky Mountains, I'd seen this pile that looked like a hairball that my cat hacked up, but this was nowhere near an area that would have domestic cats or feral cats. Plus it was fairly good size. And I asked, could it possibly have been a bobcat? And he said it could possibly have been. They cough up hairballs just like domestic cats do. I thought that was pretty cool that he took the time to write back to some, somebody that looks at hairballs. But yeah, this was first published in library 1999. So yeah, it's been around a while, but tracks and scat, they haven't changed that much in the last 24 years. All right. That's what I had for now. I might be doing some planting over the next week or so. I'll certainly be keeping my eyes open for more butternuts. If any of you are responsible for this, I need to have a word with you, because it's pretty funny if it is. It's a good trick to play. If not, nobody has anything else, we'll call it quits for tonight. And again, no meeting next week. The next time we'll get together will be in 2 weeks on Tuesday, May 16th. All right, with that, everybody, have a great rest of your week. Take care. Lots of nature to see right now. Just stay away from that poison ivy. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thanks,
Good night.
Pam.
Pam?
Thanks, Pam.
Great to see you.